March the 14th, 2022. I'm Dana Durnford. How are you today? We're going to cover the Fukushima anniversary. The great big anniversary of 2022. Last year was a banger. This year's a banger. We got a poll for everybody. If you're walking and you see a journalist, a professor, a academic on your side of the sidewalk, should you cross the road to avoid the danger? And the correct answer, of course, is yes. What a sad world we live in that we have to say something like that, certainly. We done a poll last week where these people slightly human and everybody voted no. Particularly Rafael Grossi. He replaced the other demon at United Nations little pet lapdog. By the way, for a hobby, he goes around sniffing bicycle seats. Try wrapping your mind around this one. So if you're walking down the road and you see Seth Dorn from CBS, or Rupert Winfield Hayes, or Anna Corinne from CNN, or Cecilia Vega, who happens to be now in the press at the White House from ABC Australia, would you cross the road? Well, you should, because they're pretending they're 100 feet above the wreckage to your left, which was Reactor 4. What kind of society does that say about us, that we live in a society that tolerates these degenerate mass murderers? Speaking about degenerates, Chris Sarkozy from the University of British Columbia, or Simon Fraser University, actually.
And living next to a nuclear power station can actually contribute less than your loved one when it comes to... with myself as one of the principal investigators, was awarded $6 million.
And that's a recurring $6 million to do the stuff like he done. So what he was talking about, and just listen to it again. How did everybody know to laugh?
And living next to a nuclear power station can actually contribute less than your loved one when it comes to...
Right, so how did everybody know they were supposed to laugh? Because they're all in on it. So what he was saying was, sleeping next to your loved one, you get a bigger radiation douchebag. You get a bigger radiation dose than you do from living alongside of a nuclear power plant, which is simply not true, of course. And so they should lose their tenure for that, and they should lose their licenses and probably go to jail because they're teaching people very dangerous lies. TEPCO confirms the steam come up from underground at Reactor 1. This was sustained for several years, by the way. The steam coming out of the ground from the China syndrome, where the reactor cores had melted their way down into the ground at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. The steam coming out was lethal doses. In fact, they had to abandon the site constantly because of the steam. If you walk in the steam, you die on the spot. Of course, it's homeless, so most people couldn't care less, of course, because they're stupid. Nuclear expert, worst case scenario was abandon Tokyo, which is what they should have done, because Tokyo, 220 kilometers away, was inconceivably radioactive, and it will be for several million years. Think about this headline before we get into the stories tonight. As the public, possibly worldwide, sickens over time, the truth will come out about Fukushima. Over there is a study of people in California who would have got sick from sequestering sulfur peroxide, hydrogen buckyballs into their bodies. To the right is the French's government institution model of 16 days of radioactive fallout. 16 days. That should terrify you. Do you think that you can escape that? You think you're better than that? You think radiation won't affect you, just everybody else? I'm talking to new people, obviously. Is it rational to doubt Fukushima reports? This was a study. To be fair, right? This was an honest study. Is it rational to doubt Fukushima? Officials have no right to dismiss as irrational the public's mistrust of official pronouncements about the 11th of March earthquake, tsunami, and Japan's nuclear reactors in Fukushima. And that was Sandman and Jody Lannert from Princeton, New Jersey, USA. They said, as a result of a variety of precautions that might be considered excessive or premature if the public felt they could trust the authorities, avoiding Japanese food, for example, or seeking out a supply of potassium iodides is the same thing, by the way, suddenly becomes sensible and should not be branded as illogical, hysterical, or radiophobia, which is what it was. There was a concerted effort worldwide, immediately sustained for several years straight, to manipulate and deceive and coerce the entire population of the planet. From universities, pro-nuclear university, nuclear students, public relation firms, and the world's media. Vicious lies, vicious deception, vicious, deadly criminal activities. And in late 2014, or 13 rather, they started picking up 1-ton bags of radiation. So when you see these types of pictures, they're typically after 2013. There was 150,000 sites like this, which was 3% of livable land that they were hoping to move people back to. Was the only reason. Now, picking up bags of radiation can't change what's going on. You can't clean up after a nuclear disaster like this. It can't be done. I mean, you can spend a couple of $1 trillion and make a bit of a difference, but you're not supposed to live there. So then this study here, inspection of radiocesium concentration levels in rice this is 2015 study, after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant accident. Like, would you eat, if you're driving into a community to buy food, and you were passing thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of places like this, do you turn and go back, or do you keep going and get food? Because if you keep going and get the food, then you're going to get poisoned, and you're going to poison your friends and your families and your loved ones. This one had 43 citations where it was mentioned. So we summarized the inspection of radiocesium, which is gamma. They don't mention alpha or neutron or beta for some reason, like that don't exist. Concentration levels in food, known as rice in this case, produced in the Fukushima Prefecture, Japan, for 3 years from the nuclear accident 2011. They never stopped growing food in a nuclear wasteland. And originally they gave the farmers gamma Geiger counters, like I'm using up there, that were most likely extremely dysfunctional, and told the farmers if it's over 500 becquerels, mix it with other stuff or don't ship it. Reveals that the rice with cesium concentrations levels over 500 becquerels a kilogram. Originally there was no limit. Then they had this limit till April or June or something of 2012. And this is not a limit because it's just acknowledging cesium, but they're not actually checking, obviously, or you wouldn't ship food out of there. The provincial regulation levels until March 2012 in Japan, which was actually April, was identified in an area north and west of the Fukushima plant. Let me remind you of this model again. The entire planet gets covered in 16 days. And the studies to your left, and many, many studies like that, proves these were absurd amounts. It's outrageous. It's outrageous. The whole story is disgusting and despicable. The nuclear industry does not have any credibility. It's not supposed to exist. It's supposed to exist, but in jail, or preferably on death row. The internal exposures of an average adult eating rice grown in the area north of the nuclear power plant in the nuclear wasteland itself was estimated at 0.05, not becquerels, but millisieverts. And per year, not hour, per year. Like it's so low, the number they're actually talking about is so low. You got bigger doses than that throughout Canada and the United States all day long from Fukushima. But ground zero was next to no dose. And if you ate it all the time in the entire year, you got 0.05 millisieverts. Millisieverts. I'm sorry, microsieverts. Look. It's so shocking what they've done. I don't know how the world can forgive the nuclear industry. I really don't understand that. I don't understand why there's not a million people trying to prosecute these disgusting, despicable, pro-nuclear people on this planet. I don't know how they look in a mirror. I really can't comprehend how evil you got to be to work in this industry. It's beyond any concept of evil. It's beyond any rationale. Really, it is. To be a pro-nuclear or to actually physically work or to defend this industry. You really, truly got to be some kind of devilish goblin, some demonic, twisted, sadistic, sick monster. It's the only way you can defend this hideous monstrosity known as nuclear, and certainly from what happened in Japan. 2012 Fukushima Prefecture authorities. You got some guts calling yourself authorities. I call you authority, all right? I'll call you authority to come pick up your dead body after. Decided to investigate the radiocesium concentration levels in all rice using custom-made belt conveyor testers. Notably, rice with cesium concentration levels of 100 becquerels a kilogram, the new standard since April 2012. It was 500 becquerels a kilogram for the first year. The lunatic, degenerate mass murderers were shipping it worldwide, particularly to Canada, that had no restrictions for 11 years. Try wrapping your mind around that one. Try wrapping your mind around how the nuclear industry not only got a stranglehold on all of Canada and the government, but they're murdering Canadians now at a phenomenal rate with radioactive food from Japan for 11 years straight. Why don't you care? Where are the heroes on this friggin' planet? Where are the rational people on this planet? Where is justice on this friggin' stupid, destroyed planet, I should say? This is our planet, not their planet. We're going to have to wrestle it back from them. And if we got to tear their arms off to do it, that's acceptable. were detected in only 71 of 28 bags. You covered the entire planet with radioactive fallout. You disgusting, destructive, despicable cowards on this planet. They had 11 million bags. Now, do you know what the bags look like? They're 50-pound bags. So 11 million bags of 50 pounds is 550 million pounds, for goodness sakes, of genocide. That's enough to poison everybody on the planet on its own. That's 275,000 one-ton pickup trucks of rice each year in a nuclear wasteland being shipped all over the world. That's murder on a whole different scale. Everybody should be going to war against the despicable, coward, twisted, sadistic nuclear industry. Everybody in the nuclear industry is the 8 million species and humanity's mortal enemies. You might not appreciate it right now, but you will if you're smart. SOS from a local official, I can't take it anymore. Black dust at 5.5 million becquerels a kilogram. Local official, 5 million becquerels a kilogram, no decontamination. We can't eat the food grown there, but we're forced to live there. 1-ton bags, growing food right alongside of it for sale. Yeah? Try making that up on your own. Do you got any idea how evil that actually is? Do you ever lose a loved one to cancer and watch them die and fade away from you? That's how evil it is. But think of it on 1 billion to 2 to 3 billion people dying that way over the next number of years. 10 million becquerels a kilogram of cesium minima soma. Per kilogram. You got to multiply it by 68 to get the square meter. 20 million becquerels a kilogram in Minnesota. Minnesota is a nuclear wasteland, where they're currently growing food and shipping it worldwide, by the way. And they're only talking about gamma. The most insidious betrayal of all. They're not checking for anything. They say they're checking for cesium, which is gamma emitters, but they're actually not. They're not checking for uranium. They're not checking for plutonium. They're not checking for beta or alphas or neutrons. You call this a planet? You call this life? You need to reevaluate what life actually means. Do you got any idea how late we are 11 years down the road? Now they're gone into full murder mode, full genocide, full omnicide mode against the entire planet. What point you going to fight back, I wonder? 70% of children tested alongside of in Tokyo, in a region of Tokyo, have radioactive cesium. And if anybody knows anything about this, they know that's not no big surprise outside of the shocking fact that it is a terrible disaster. 13,646 children out of 40,000 with small tumors. Once they start growing, it never stops. The reason it's growing because the radiation is sequestered in the thyroid. Most of the radiation goes into your thyroid, is converted into radioactive hormones. Do you look up what hormones actually do? And you can appreciate why I'm outraged, hopefully. Would you eat food from here? Because you are. If you're going to the supermarket, you're eating food from there. Almost 100,000 Fukushima kids with thyroid problems. There it is. That's a journalist. That's a doctor, rather. And she's got 14 plus books on nuclear, anti-nuclear. It's the insidious monster from Australia known as Helen Caldicott. Let me play a clip of her. She was asked, is the building to the left real or is the one to the right real?
You've said that if the spent fuel pool in number 4 collapses, that you would evacuate your family from Boston. Do you think we would ever know the truth of what's going on there? And the reason I ask is because we've seen coverage in the national news media here in the United States from ABC News and others that take video cameras in saying that they're being given exclusive access to number 4 in the removal of the fuel rods, which is said to have begun. And what we see in the video being shared here in America is a pristine interior building. It doesn't look like a building in which the top blew off in a hydrogen explosion.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. It looks like that. It can't look like that. You can't make it look like that. You can't build another fuel pool and say we're getting fuel out of the pool. That doesn't exist. And Helen's not stupid. And not only that, she's done that in hundreds of interviews.
The Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine.
It's Helen Caldicott from Australia. Beyond Nuclear and the rest of them are degenerates. They're incredible monsters. Like Arnie Gunnison, incredible monster. Former Japanese ambassador, no single weapon competes with the potential damage from Fukushima Unit 4. Well, there is no reactor there. I don't know if you notice it, but there's no reactor there. The people you see lined up there, that's just me. Each one of those I shot individually, so no two victims are doing the same thing. What I was trying to convey was it's just an endless line of people being sacrificed for nothing, to trick you, to deceive you, to manipulate you. See this structure here? That's why they built it, was to trick you and deceive you, as I'll show you, as I already showed you, rather.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami.
That's mainstream media telling you you're on a building that doesn't even exist. That doesn't worry people. That doesn't shock people. That doesn't upset people. That doesn't outrage the world? That doesn't worry you? Good God, are you that naive? Are you really that gullible on this planet? Yale professor, nothing like this has ever been attempted. They're talking about Reactor 4. Getting a fuel out of a pool that doesn't exist. Plume model showed 1 million becquerels. It was much worse than that over the West Coast per square meter. Doomsday-like radiation release. If fire in a pool at Unit 4, it would be a global catastrophe. Doomsday-like radiation would be something like this: 20 million particles of radioactive iodine-131 per liter fell on the US and Canada and was sustained for weeks. Another academic study coming out of Ottawa, Canada, these are rare ones, by the way, where they told you the truth, but they didn't tell you what else was found, did they? 220 million atoms, but you can extrapolate with these kind of numbers, per liter of rainfall falling on Canada, United States, per liter. My God, where is humanity? We've lost our humanity. This is not tenable to pretend this is not happening. This is why you're seeing the chaos. It's scripted. Their cover story by the nuclear industry now is exterminate most of the planet. blame it on coronavirus, blame it on war with Putin, but blame it on something, anything but nuclear. 1,500 atoms of radioactive sulfur, peroxide, hydrogen, buckyballs per cubic meter detected in the California
The
area.
Japanese are very tidy people, and they have, by robot control and by human beings, removed the debris from the top of Building 4, and it does look pristine. The Japanese are very tidy people.
But it doesn't. It can't. You can't just build something on top of a nuclear meltdown and go in there. You can't just build wishing wells. Idiot.
The Japanese are very
Former Harvard professor. Now, Helen Caldicott was a professor at one time. Former Harvard professor convicted of defrauding a couple. Another Harvard school psychiatrist accused of sexual abuse. A psychologist at Harvard University accused of sexual abuse. Former MIT professor convicted of staging shooting. Former Stanford professor convicted of tax evasion. South Korea professor convicted of faking a Yale degree. Former professor is convicted of embezzling $650,000 from the students. Former UCI professor convicted of setting fires. Now, the problem is there's not a lot of professors compared to any other discipline, say like engineer or school teacher or whatever, right? The mailman or whatever. There's not that many universities worldwide, and there's not that many professors, is what I'm saying, right? But the amount of crime and the level of crime from these people that we're supposed to put our faith into, these institutions and these people. How do you do that after you look at the subject realistically? Former professor convicted of hiring a hitman to murder his daughter-in-law. Former CSU East Bay professor convicted of baby sex abuse. Should all the students have to redo their courses after these people? Then U.S. law professor convicted of assaulting a 70-year-old taxi driver. A law professor. Columbia professor convicted of attempted incest. Convicted of child porn, early childhood professor. Obviously a pedophile who got the job to be around little children. Professor convicted of slew of child porn charges. University of Michigan opera professor, husband charged with sexual assault. Convicted former professor admits to abusing children. University professor convicted of 26 fraud public corruption charges involving around $9.3 million program where he stole the money that he was given to help abuse children and rape the children. KU professor convicted of assaulting 3 girls. Ex-professor convicted of sex crimes can go to Hong Kong to get away from the victims. OC professor convicted of exposing himself to multiple women. Professor convicted on child pornography charges, of faking vandalism, sex for grade professor, law professor, sex for grades. Left-wing professor convicted of raping a 13-month-old baby. Virginia Tech professor convicted in grant fraud cases. Convicted of defrauding students from Maryland professor. Morgan State University professor convicted of fraud scheme with essay examples where he would give them the literature in advance they needed to pass the class. Business professor convicted of tax fraud. Morgan professor convicted of grant fraud. MTSU nursing professor convicted of money fraud. College professor convicted of defrauding national science foundations. Former Florida State professor convicted of embezzlement. Professor and wife convicted of fraud of $700,000 from NASA contracts. University of M professor convicted of attempt by swindle. Former Harvard professor convicted of stealing $600,000 from a Hong Kong jewelry. Man convicted of double murder was a professor. Liberty University professor charged with attempted murder of his wife. Professor convicted of torturing his wife. Another professor convicted of murder. Another professor convicted of poisoning his wife. Convicted of vehicle manslaughter professor. Professor convicted in wife cyanide killing. Professor convicted in yoga ball murders. Ex-Ivy League professor convicted in wife's death. He done it when he was a professor. Everything they touch is nothing but evil. Nothing but evilness. So when I put the poll up, when you see, if you're walking, you see a journalist, a professor, an academic on your side, should you cross the road to avoid danger? That's what I mean. Because that's what I would do. I'd shit myself and smear it all over my bodies. Hopefully he wouldn't attack and murder me. Here's Arnie Gunnarsson, a nuclear engineer, convincing you that the building doesn't look like this, that it looks like that. And nobody holds him accountable, only me. Nobody asks that question, only me. How come?
Now, the division I ran built nuclear fuel racks for boiling water reactors exactly like Fukushima.
So he built the fuel pools for the racks, for the fuel pools, for the reactor exactly like Fukushima, to the right. And he doesn't know it's gone. And his wife, Maggot.
And Unit 4 has always been my biggest concern. If you watched our website, on the very first week of the accident, I was saying that if Unit 4 were to catch fire, you'd have to evacuate Tokyo.
You have to evacuate Tokyo. So if the building looks like that, you got to evacuate Tokyo. Do you got any idea how disgusting what he just said is? He spent years trying to convince you that it looks like that when it actually looks like this. That doesn't frighten the shit out of you. That there's nobody on the planet to hold them scum accountable. That doesn't terrify you that people like that actually exist. Because it should. It should mortify everybody on this planet that people like Arnie Gunnarsson, Helen Caldercott, and the rest of them actually exist. How dangerous is the region around Fukushima 11 years after the disaster? Well, you can ask that in 11,000 years or 11 million years. It's still going to be dangerous. 11 years ago at a time, entire cities and landscapes were destroyed in thousands. It was actually 500,000. And of course, everybody worldwide should have ran. This model is basically that's March the 14th. I'm going to speed it up double. That's March the 16th. That's March the 17th. That's 1 week later, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd, March the 23rd, March the 24th. Do you get what's going on here? The entire planet is covered within a couple of weeks. Today, some places in the Fukushima district are considered habitable again. Yeah, I'll show you these places. United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of the Atomic Radiation. United Nations, of course, everybody in the United Nations should be shot and thrown into a ditch for what they've done. Absorbed doses in red bone marrow for the first year. To the right, this line right here, the second row, is average disposition of gamma, not alpha, not beta, not neutron. According to all the experts, all the academics, all the professors, all the scientists, only gamma comes out of a nuclear meltdown. That doesn't terrify you. I'm to the point now where I throttle every one of them if I see them. 40,000 becquerels a square meter. These towns are not abandoned. United Nations, no, you'll be okay, stupid. You stay there, stupid moron. You'll be fine, bird brain. Look at these numbers. These numbers, I'll get out of the way, the second row. The first numbers are the people that are in the community. The second row is the numbers of gamma becquerels, atomic decays per second, not millisieverts, not disgusting microsieverts, not unisieverts, but becquerels. So Koriyama City with 340,000 people at 160,000 counts per square meter of just gamma. If you put in beta and alpha and neutrons, you're looking at a couple of million becquerels, atomic decays a second per square meter, aka hell. You got any idea what kind of coward you actually got to be to keep that many people in each of those communities in that environment? You got any idea how evil you actually got to be to let that happen? It's the average person in the nuclear industry. That's what we're talking about. The actual word evil doesn't even do it justice. Machiavellian doesn't do it justice. There's no name to describe them. There really isn't. No appropriate name exists to describe how actually insidious and hideous and monstrous and evil and pathetic and degenerate it is to sit back and let people live in that friggin' environment. Children and women and victims. So the nuclear industry can pretend that it has some redeeming qualities. All of those communities, the first row is people that lives in the communities, the second row is atomic decays, and just gamma, you disgusting cowards, per square meter, the size of your dinner table, throughout your whole city. It's outrageous. It's not tenable. Back to this story. How dangerous is the regions around Fukushima? Well, you're not going to tell us the truth, are you? Every life in Fukushima is not only a psychological challenge, the long-term consequences and current exposure to the radiations have also not been fully clarified. I just did. Some areas located directly at the power plant and to the northeast of it are still uninhabitable due to the high levels of radioactivity. It's an area equivalent of 340 square kilometers. No, it's not. You covered the whole planet. This model is only 20 days. The radiation doesn't stop and disappear after 20 days or 20,000 years. You can't have a future when all we got is lies and a death factory called Fukushima going in second gear all the time. Everyday life in Fukushima. The west coast of North America hit with many different types of isotopes of incredible numbers. This one in particular is iodine-129 we're talking about. At 220 million atoms, not millisieverts, not microsieverts, not unisieverts, but actual atoms isotopes, pulsing energy every second at the speed of light. The cleanup work on the damaged nuclear power plant has not yet been completed. They estimate 100 years. These people says decades. 150,000 sites like that. And would you go there and pick up food? Because if you would, you're literally stupid. Congratulations. You probably work for the nuclear industry. Robots are sometimes used because the radiation dose is too dangerous for the homeless and the destitute and the victims of society and the immigrants who don't speak the language. Because it ain't nuclear scientists there. It ain't nuclear academics there. It ain't professors there. It ain't nuclear students or nuclear corporations or nuclear companies there, is it? It's just the homeless and the victims of society. And then when you do get a picture of one of them there, they're not actually there. It's Photoshop. The radiation levels 5 to more than 100 times higher than internationally recommended maximums. There is no safe level of radiation. 44 miles away, you can't go back to the community, but it's okay at ground zero, is it? You twisted, sadistic, spineless, soulless, heartless monster. You revolting, spineless, soulless, heartless monsters. Here was a rarity. Japan should not push residents back to Fukushima. Go to the 10th anniversary. UN says no adverse health effects. And who the fuck is UN? There are 193 militaries who don't have anybody but their own interest at heart. UN, this was the anniversary. Headline after headline, all the big media, UN find no adverse health effects. Yahoo News, UN find no adverse health effects. The World, UN experts say radiation from Fukushima will have no negative impact. Fukushima radiation not harm the population. UN said no adverse health effects linked to the nuclear disaster. This is absurdness, by the way. The ultimate betrayal. The worst possible news is when the organization you're dependent upon stabs you and runs you over and goes through your pockets. Fukushima radiation did not damage the health of local people. The degenerate monsters known as UN says. Everybody on the planet should be humiliated. United Nations even exists. An entity of evil with a legacy of nothing but evil, now calling the shots for every country. You have no sovereignty anywhere on the planet. Everybody bowed and bent the knee and kissed the ring of monsters at the United Nations, like good, useful idiots. UN experts say radiation from Fukushima will have no negative health effects. Yeah. Try taking one of them to Fukushima, they'll tear your fucking arm off. They'll be screaming and crying like a child. No! Even the communities of Nami, a nuclear wasteland, Lydia, the actual nuclear wastelands, for which the evacuation order no longer applies because United Nations and nuclear industry lifted the evacuation orders in a nuclear wasteland to try to give the nuclear industry some street creds. According to the report, around 300 children have been diagnosed with thyroid. It's actually 350,000 out of 1 million. But hey, 350,000, I can't tell the difference. Can you tell the difference? Irreversible heart damage for children with 50 becquerels a kilogram. 50 becquerels a kilogram. Irreversible heart damage. And children with 11 becquerels a kilogram of just gamma cesium start to see heart problems. This is a study based on Chernobyl radioactive fallout. Whether food from the region is harmful to health in the long term has not been 100% clarified. Really. They've actually studied man-made radiation more than any other element in the entire solar system. The population is in any case unsettled. Rice is growing again in Fukushima just a few kilometers from the nuclear reactors. 45 miles away, the owners have never been back to their shops. To ensure that nothing goes wrong, Japanese authorities monitor harvests and check the radiation levels of the rice plants. The rice can only be sold if the radiation levels is below the permitted levels. If you believe that, then you're unbelievable. You're the problem. 50 becquerels a kilogram in humans lead to irreversible lesions in the vital organs. They've been shipping it non-stop now for 11 years. They never stopped growing it there. And you're wondering why all the autoimmune diseases and illnesses and autoimmune deficiencies are showing up everywhere. Canada had a ban for 90 days, lifted all restrictions. Japan couldn't ship it anywhere, so they bombarded Canada. Now Canada's one great big cancer friggin' factory. Everybody's sick now in Canada. There are even some tour providers who take tourists through uninhabitable areas. By the way, all these pictures, these are habitable areas. They consider habitable areas. They pick the bags up to trick people into going back. It's the strangest story in human history. There's nothing compares to it. Which also includes the destroyed nuclear power plant, Fukushima Daiichi. They actually take tourists to the nuclear meltdowns. The nuclear industry is nobody's friend, not even their own. They're definitely not your friend or this planet's friend. They are, though, the planet's enemy and humanity's enemy and 8 million species' enemies. If I could solve it on my own, I would have solved this a long time ago. I would have sacrificed it all to solve this. I would have. But you're talking the entire nuclear industry worldwide is perpetrating these crimes on us, are murdering us in slow kill with no way out of it. They've taken over the entire planet with the help of, you guessed it, United Nations, the degenerate, spineless, soulless coward known as United Nations. Local surf schools even want to create new hotspots for surfing there. 9 kilometers from a disaster. Fukushima is actually a classic dark tourism destination, but the local idiots prefer the term hope tourism. And they are idiots on a whole different scale. I want to show that their homeland is not dangerous. Really? Most of these stories are written by the nuclear industry, and the media that publish it gets a kickback for putting it on their site. Build up an audience. Nuclear industry now will pay you to print their stories. You got to put your name on it, though. They don't want the world realizing they're doing it. Is a trip to Fukushima really as harmless as the tour operator and travel companies make it out to be? No, it'll never be harmless. You're guaranteed to get sick from it. Just a single trip there will make you sick for the rest of your life. What is the radiation exposure on a tour of Fukushima? We get less radioactive doses than if you have an x-ray at the dentist, says one of the tour guides to the Swiss radio and television. Like, this is absurdness to suggest that it's like an x-ray gets turned off and turned on. It's a beam, right? It's not very nice thing to do to you, by the way. But when you breathe it in or drink it or consume it, most likely you're going to breathe. If you're there, you're breathing it in. It sequesters in your muscles, your organs, and your bones immediately, forever. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life, every second of it, with white blood cells, which means you're going to displace the red blood cells, which carry oxygen and nutrition throughout your body, permanently, until it finally builds a tumor around it. It still doesn't stop then. Tumor metastasizes and gets bigger and everything else. But there's up to 1,800 illnesses you can get now before the tumor shows up, because the tumor is normally latent. Disinformation by nuclear proponents, by nuclear monsters, try to confuse the public about the effects of external and internal radiation. There's legions and legions and legions of them too. It's an endless, relentless bombardment. We got a poll tonight. If walking and you see a journalist, a professor, an academic on your side of the sidewalk, should you cross the road to avoid the danger? Because you are in danger. The last thing you want is cooties from a professor, a journalist, or an academic of any discipline. They've all failed us. 11 years and silence. And then they write little articles like this, publish it to get their monies. Just come out and brainwash everybody with propaganda is not a solution. It's the definition of a crime. They said for comparison, in Germany, the average annual exposure is 2.1 millisieverts. This is not from man-made, though. This is anthropogenic. This is natural stuff. You don't get any dose from natural stuff. They made that up to use these comparisons then to deceive you and manipulate you and coerce you and ultimately murder you. How do you tell the story without emotions, I wonder? Because when I put these stories together, I'm generally very calm. By the time I'm finished putting the story together, I'm angry because of the harm and the deaths and the murder and the misery that these things are causing. I can't avoid it. I can't escape it because I'm stuck with it all the time. People have always absorbed natural radioactive substances into their body. Just you literally want to pull their hair right out of their heads, whoever says that. Natural stuff is harmless. You're acclimated to it through genetic superior selection. Everything lives in harmony with it. It's not actually radioactivity of the definition. You can't make a dirty bomb out of fucking bananas. Says the website of the responsible federal agencies. Yeah, whoever wrote that should eat a baseball bat. Airborne radiation near Fukushima nuke plant still far higher than Demon's max allowable limits. In many places in Fukushima, the radiation exposure is still very high today. Really? Batman? Really? There's so much evidence available. Why don't you use some of it? You shit for brains. Hey, Fukushima wants to generate green energy and revitalize tourism. Oh yeah, and agricultural in a nuclear wasteland. Whoever designed that should be arrested. And then the victims should be allowed to beat them to death with baseball bats. Try taking a nuclear scientist down this road here. He'll pull the eyes right out of your head. He'll scream and defecate all over himself. Before the 2011 tragedy, Fukushima was known for hot springs and fruit and rice and sake. He still is, you stupid moron. They're murdering everybody worldwide, you moron. Northeastern Japan has been seeking local revitalizations since the tragedy. Local! In a nuclear wasteland. Here's a story. Temporary radioactive soil storage site hinders the farmers. It don't look like it hindered that farmer. This is the picture where they say stop picking on the farmers who are harvesting rice right alongside of 1-ton bags of radiation. Another rice paddy in the foreground serves as a temporary storage site for piles of, they call it black plastic bags, 1-ton bags of radiation. And they call this Fukushima Daiichi. This is not Fukushima Daiichi. This is another facility where they had around 1,200 tons of depleted uranium, and that's what you see burning. You can't clean buildings. You can't clean roads. Removing the topsoil is not going to get rid of the radiation. You got to remove all the structures. You got to remove the sidewalks. You got to remove the cement, the pavement, the buildings, the houses, the schools, everything, and never go back. All they do is lie. We've covered this for years and years and years. I apologize for having any fucking emotions. With the decontamination and natural reduction of atmospheric contamination, airborne radiation, the cities of the province, there is no province, prefectures, currently present levels considered normal of radiation near between 0.04 and 0.12 millisieverts. There's 1,000 millisieverts, or 1,000 microsieverts in a millisievert. First off, the air doesn't radiate millisieverts. It's atoms, it's atomic decays, it's becquerels that are pulsing energy every second. Millisieverts and microsieverts are for being close to the fuel storage sites. And the reason you see millisieverts and microsieverts, unisieverts, is to trick you, is to deceive you, and ultimately to murder you and harm you at best. Preferably is to murder you. There is no rationale to sit in silence. There's no way forward by sitting in silence and pretending this is okay. There's not a solution. The people that cause a millisievert should lose their lower part of their fucking jaw so they don't say anything else ever again. In Okuma, which is the nuclear friggin' wasteland, this rate can reach 4 millisieverts. 4 millisieverts! Right alongside of ongoing multiple nuclear reactors melting down, yeah? It's 4,000 microsieverts. It's still nothing compared to the real number. You can't find a single story, 4 out of 1,000, I think it is, will tell you some of the truth, a little tiny bit of the truth. 4 in 1,000. And we know because we cover thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of stories over the years. 29 million becquerels, not microsieverts, not millisieverts, not unisieverts, but becquerels per square meter in Okuma, nearby the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. These are absurd numbers. And they say it's only millisieverts. You live in a world of nothing but scumbags and lawyers. Your governments, the nuclear industry, the universities, the journalists, the academics are just scumbags. There's no such thing as a good journalist or a good academic or a good Professor. There really isn't. They're out there, but we'll never see them. It's probably 0.05% out of 100 is good people. But they can't open their mouth because they'll lose their job. Fukushima is the third largest prefecture and the breadbasket, the biggest farm production in Japan. In 2012, it was 865,000 extra cancers. Cancer is usually latent. There's up to 1,800 illnesses will show up before cancer. All they do, everything is scripted as a lie to you. Everything is scripted. Every friggin' facet of it is scripted to lie to you, manipulate you, and deceive you, and twist the truth out of. It's perpetual lies. Every day, all day long. That's what we get. That's what we come out and talk about. 5 days a week, typically. We'll cover the 24-hour or so cycle of lies. Every single nuclear story is going to have 2, 3, 5, 10 lies into it. Every single story. Not by accident, but as a propaganda. It's a propaganda tool. In the first 5 years, there was an intensive reconstruction period by homeless and destitute victims of society, where they spent US $250 billion picking up bags. Between 2016 and 2020, they spent another US $65 billion. So that's the most scary sight imaginable. They only picked this up, by the way, to trick you and your loved ones into going there, or to grow food there and ship it worldwide and pretend it's okay. One intention only was to hurt you, to make you sick and hopefully kill you. That's the only intention of doing what they done. That's not perhaps, that's not almost, that's not maybe, that's not sometimes. That's 100% of the time. Their job, as far as they're concerned, is to exterminate you. With the meltdown of Fukushima, the 55 existing reactors were shut down. So they decided to poison everybody instead and get back at you. Fukushima must not be forgotten. Catastrophe in Fukushima's lasting consequences must not be forgotten. It's already forgotten. Not even 11 years and pretending that everything is okay. So they can get their paycheck each Friday. Doesn't matter if you're harmed and get sick. Good. That's how they see it. Good. This is a Neptunian 239 radioactive follower from TEPCO's numbers modeled as a radioactive plume covering the entire planet. And in Germany, activists demanded the immediate shutdown of a uranium enrichment plant. Germany's only got 3 reactors left running. They're going to close down at the end of 2022. So why are they manufacturing fuel? Because the nuclear industry is a lunatic. It's actually evil. That's what nuclear means. Nuclear means evil. Nuclear means fuck you. Nuclear means fuck your kids. Nuclear means shit on you, murder you, despise you, hate you. That's what nuclear means. That's all it means. No redeeming qualities, period. 11 years later, reactor catastrophe continues. The threat of Fukushima is far from gone. It won't, if it had stopped right here, it wouldn't stop falling out for several decades. Covering the entire planet in just a couple of weeks. And it still continues to come out today. Wagner describes the current situation in Fukushima in detail, where decontamination is not completely successful. You can't decontaminate the entire planet, because that's what you're supposed to do. The whole planet's covered in radiation. How bad is ground zero? You don't even need a grade 3 education to understand that one. The whole world should be rising up and destroying the nuclear industry. Nuclear power is a degenerate, coward industry. It's an industry full of nothing but cowards, nothing but monsters, nothing but scumbags, nothing but degenerates, nothing but monsters, nothing but evil. All we see from nuclear, and we're at this all year long. 7 days a week. 5 days a week I do these live shows, but I'm at this 7 days a week. All they do is lie. It's like they don't have... Unless you're evil, you can't join the nuclear industry. Unless you want to murder everybody, you can't join the nuclear industry. It's a death cult. And it's extremely efficient. And we need to stop this. This is not acceptable. There should be no renaissance of nuclear power. Indeed. Don't eat food from Japan. It wasn't just Fukushima, it's 14 prefectures where the food was banned. And the fact that the demonic, spineless, soulless, heartless, monstrous creatures are growing food right alongside of nuclear waste, I don't understand why the world is not fighting back. I can't wrap my freaking mind around it. Is the whole world suffering from Stockholm? Yeah, Japan's the only place was hit with nuclear bombs, multiple nuclear meltdowns on top of that. No more nuclear, period. This is the only building that survived in Hiroshima. Now they turned it into a peace memorial. But they built the city back on a nuclear bomb crater. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They built it back on the bomb craters to encourage the victims to continue living there so they can study them, which is what they've done. And I cover that each year on the anniversaries, where I show you the academic studies of where they studied them for 76 years. We've never seen nothing like it. This despicable sack of shit, Governor Uchibori, he's not a governor, he's a monster. He's an incredible degenerate monster. He's an actual monster. The first 3 days since the nuclear meltdown started, he didn't sleep. He even gave interviews non-stop for 3 days, saying there is no nuclear meltdown, there is no radioactive fallout. When there was multiple nuclear meltdowns and the worst nuclear fallout in human history. Now, he's in charge of Fukushima, where he's promoting food worldwide to murder billions of people. His agenda is to murder billions of people. And he doesn't see nothing wrong with it because he's got some power. He's a big shot. All you got to do is murder billions of people with radioactive food, and he can live a luxury life. And that's what he's willing to do. I'm trying to stop it with truth, by being honest. And tonight is not one of my better nights, so I get that. But you got to appreciate where I'm coming from, because I got to wallow in this excrement all day. Uchibori is the definition of a murderer, mass murderer, of a genocide monster. He has all the attributes of a monster. Years without forestry education as Fukushima decontamination falls short. Children can safely enter, according to a local community leader. For God's sakes, don't trust your children's future in a nuclear wasteland. You should be arrested for child abuse for having your child there in the first place, you shit for brain. Get your friggin' ignorant ass educated and get your children out of there, you murderers. The airborne radiation levels in those areas are still not low enough that children can safely enter, according to the local community leaders. One such area is Yamakiya district in the town of Kamawata, Fukushima Prefecture, which is down there, is 89,000 becquerels a square meter, with 16,000 people in the community. Yellow and pink vinyl wrapped around the trees indicate the years they were planted by local elementary school children. That's pre-Fukushima he's talking about. At the end of March, it'll be 5 years since the evacuation orders were lifted in the nuclear wasteland. But even now, the voices of the children are not returned to the mountains. Thank goodness. Not for lack of trying, though, is it? Many 311 related deaths in Fukushima County came after repeated shelter relocation. No, they had to evacuate because of radioactive fallout. They waited too long, they got lethal doses, and then they ended up dying in the shelters. That's actually what happened. University of Tokyo disaster relief in Fukushima sprouts seeds of new research. Some researchers set out on an unprecedented project to measure radiation levels in coastal towns in Fukushima Prefecture only a few months after the core meltdowns at the nearby Fukushima nuclear disaster. Other researchers toiled with Fukushima villagers to think up a farmer-friendly way to reduce radioactive cesium from agricultural soil. So instead of telling the farmers to get out of here, you're in a nuclear wasteland, they tricked the farmers to become complacent and continue to grow food to poison people worldwide. This is why we got a poll tonight. If you're walking and you see a journalist, a professor, an academic on the same sidewalk as you, should you cross the road to avoid the danger? And the right answer is yes. 84% of the people appreciated it. The rest of the academics says, no, I don't want to be labeled a monster despite the fact I'm a monster. Other researchers toiled from Fukushima villages to think up a farmer-friendly way to reduce radioactive cesium. Not uranium or plutonium or americium or neptunium or strontium or 1,000 other fission products, but the despicable, disgusting cover story known as cesium. These people should be caught, waterboarded, and give up their names of the people they're working with and go waterboard them until you accidentally drown each one of them. And some others reached out to look. That's what you would do in a normal world, believe it or not. To local high schools, so young students are trained to discuss the future of the Fukushima decommissioning with government and power officials. Some other researchers reached out to local high schools so the young students who don't know nothing could be brainwashed to discuss the future of the planet. They're actually telling you they're evil. That was in North America. The parents would kill these people in a heartbeat. Literally kill them right on the spot. Reached out to local high schools so young students are trained. That is frightening that they say stuff like that. Researchers from across disciplines at the University of Tokyo have helped with the recovery and reconstruction of a nuclear wasteland so that they can grow food there and poison everybody worldwide. Way to go, University of Tokyo You despicable pieces of shit down there. The University of Tokyo's relationship with the prefecture is expected to deepen further with the signing on March the 9th, a few days ago, of 2022 on a comprehensive cooperation agreement between the two parties. It marked the second time the university has signed a university-wide agreement with a prefectural government. There is no government in Fukushima. There's scumbags and degenerates, mass murders, but there ain't no friggin' government there. Why isn't the world angry like me? Anger, good. Pacifist, stupid. Educational activities in Fukushima are hoped to accelerate. They're talking about brainwashing all the students. Agricultural. In a nuclear wasteland. Biologists and professors at the Isotope Science Center. Isotope Science Center is one of the key researchers involved in the recovery of the nuclear wasteland. You can't recover from multiple nuclear meltdowns by growing food, poisoning everybody worldwide. You fucking degenerates. You can't. I might as well give up now, because once I start swearing, it ain't going to get any better. Right? We know that. Once I go this route, it's game over. I'm just going to get more upset as the minutes click by, ain't I? I think all nuclear scientists and academics should be thrown off a cliff without parachutes. I can't keep going because I'm just going to get upset. I'm already worked up. It's hard for me to sit here and watch everybody being murdered by this coward industry, these coward people, these coward inbreeds. I just don't understand why there's not more people out there that understands the very basics of fucking being a human is not to murder everybody and poison all the species and destroy the entire planet so the nuclear industry can get their fucking paychecks every Friday. What a stupid, idiot industry and people. The people in the nuclear industry are literally the worst humans in history. They're worse than any prisoner in any jail. I'll pick it up again tomorrow night, I guess. Evil only exists when good people sit in silence. And so the people that join the show regularly, they don't sit in silence. But the universities do. All our universities, all our academics, all our scientists, all our journalists, all they do is murder us. That's it. And we got the evidence. The evidence is unbelievably overwhelming. This was a video I shot on Saturday. It's a short video. I went and picked up some air tools and tap and dies, or a bolt extractor. So it's Saturday, March the 12th, and we picked up the air tool set, and I didn't get the drill bits because they're a little bit more than I had, but we got an extra bit or nut extraction, which is what we needed, one of them, right? And they were on sale for $24. And so, wow, it's a big deal. We got most of the tools now. Yeah, we've done exceptional the last couple of weeks. A few little odds and ends to get over the next month. But I'm humbled we got the gear that I was hoping to have. And that's a huge deal. Each one of those tools are really good tools. I mean, you know, it's a $450 set, right? But the tools are, I'm old now and I don't have the strength anyway, right? And so these air tools, they're workhorses. That's what they are. They really are. And I'm very, very, because I'm gonna have to do the work, much work as I can myself on equipment, because we got a big this is a big operation we got here, and I'm sick of busting myself up, and so I smartened up and we saved up and got the tools. Thanks to everybody, of course, helping. And the reason we picked up the air tools is James Lucid donated another 120 on the last show, and John Curtis donated an extra 12, which was 135. And so that gave us enough then to be able to go pick up the tools. So that was a huge deal, because the sale doesn't last forever, right? So that's a huge deal. I'm completely thrilled. And you can't just keep throwing money at mechanics every year. All we do, it seems some years, is just burn money on the mechanics. And I could do a lot of the work. I am capable, but I'm just not healthy. But I don't see an option. We can't afford to keep burning money on mechanics, right? Because you got to buy the parts, blah, 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 blah. And it's torture. All the equipment I got now is getting old and is ran down, and just how do you keep this operation moving forward and fighting the genocide machine until people wake up and take some pressure off me and fight back? How does that actually work, right? So for the poll tonight, we got around 6 people voted no. You shouldn't cross the street to avoid journalists, professors, and academics. That's obviously wrong. And the right answer is yes. We got 83%, so that's a win. Gives me faith in humanity. Yeah, air tools are the best, James. Yeah, thank you, by the way. It's a huge deal. It really is. And to have new tools with all the wrenches and all the extras, it's an incredible relief, let's say that much. Because that's, we got, last week I also picked up a stripped nut extractors set. So when you got a stripped nut, there's nothing worse, right? And now we got an extractor for that, and we got an extractor for broken bolts, which, because I got a couple in the outboard motor and the truck that got to come out. And I got a torch to heat everything up with. And so when spring comes, which is not very far away, it was -16 the weekend. It blew all weekend, around 50 miles per hour or something. It was really nasty weather. I had to go out and fix the tarp on the big boat in the windstorm at one point because it got loose. Even though I'm really good, it still managed to get loose. You got to appreciate how good I actually am with rope. I grew up on the ocean, so I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I got a lot of experience. Let's come in and say goodnight to everybody. Anybody that stayed around. I was pretty ordinary tonight. Pretty mean-spirited tonight for the nuclear industry. They got me pissed off now. Extinction events will do that to you, right? Staying in the sun, I wasn't on daylight savings time today, I see. I was. Hi, Dana. He probably just said that to make fun of me anyway, which is a good thing to do. James Lucid. Hi, James. Stephen Young. Hope Stephen Young is doing good today. He's got a long recovery ahead of him. It's good to see him again. And good to talk to him again, too. He's getting the spirit back into him, and that's the main thing, right? That'll keep you going. Ocean Man. Marge, Vincent. Hi, sweetie. And Richard. Cody. Peaceware. Colette. Hi, everybody. Stan Pasta. Hi, Stan. Been a while. Chet. James Megan. Dog Bolocks. Provoke. Lots of people here tonight. Wow. That's great. I apologize. I'm a bit angry tonight. I was just getting wound up all day long, reading all the lies and coming up with the counter to the point where I probably shouldn't have done the show. Harry, not that I give a shit, but I shouldn't have. Nancy San, I'm just coming down through the names. David Holly in the United Kingdom. Ayers. Jeff Poor. Andrew B. Yeah, we had lots of people ran through tonight. That's awesome. We're almost down. Well, we're halfway down. I like doing a little shout outs. It does switch me off. It really does. I respect everybody on top of that, you know. And anybody that's going to come out and hang out, even in my bad days, deserves at least a shout out. Is it a crime to want to be shouted out? Oh my goodness. I wasn't going to take the whole week off because I'm burnt out. Albert. But I think taking a week off is more damaging to me than not taking a week off. Because I'm still going to do the work. And I'm just going to get more upset. Somebody got to come out and blow off the murderers. You got to come out and punch back. Scripture Nest. Yeah, there's a solution. You got to kill all everybody in the nuclear industry. The solution is called revenge. Because you can't fix what they got done. You can help stop it. Yeah, there is solutions, but we're not allowed to have solutions. We're not allowed to have genocide and omnicide, unfortunately. And that's why you see this anger manifesting, this hopelessness sometimes. So I don't care about anything at this stage. I want revenge. I want the world to turn against the nuclear industry and gut them and hang them from a fucking telephone pole. And put the videos on YouTube or somewhere so I can enjoy it every day when I wake up. The nuclear industry not only got to go, it's got to be exterminated. It's time to fight back. It's time to hold them accountable. And there's no laws to hold them accountable, so it's time. SCH. If I butchered anybody's name, my apologies. Neryad Yeloft. Yeah, I forgot the guitar. I'll try to bring it in tomorrow night. Darren James Spencer. Time to say the F word, Greta. Yeah, Greta's crazy. She doesn't know nothing, so she's put on a pedestal. Have I got everybody? Let me scroll back up quickly. Whom did I miss? Well, looks like I got everybody. Stephen Young, still there. Hi, Stephen. Rock. Nemeth, yeah, I never got you. Danny San, never got you. Wow. Let me scroll up a little tiny bit more. That's so weird. I just scrolled past them and never seen their name. I feel better now, though. I don't like it when I miss people. When I read the comments after, and I see I missed a few people, and almost every show I'll see that. I don't get it. PBS lover. Okay, God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow night. What time is it here? Nighttime, my time. It's 11:30 p.m., half an hour to midnight. Hopefully tomorrow night will calm down a bit. Or not. I don't really give a shit. God bless everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Take care, folks. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. It's a great day to be alive. Let's everybody pray for the death of the nuclear industry. The prosecution of all the lawyers and scumbags and degenerates. You can employ millions arresting these scumbags. Hugs for everybody. See everybody tomorrow night. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you think about it. Appreciate everybody participating in the polls. It's a bit of a doozy tonight. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Good night, folks. God bless.